Hello, welcome to Iceland Team Previews. It's me. Oh God, I couldn't keep that up for too much longer. What are you doing slouching during our European preview? You're disrespecting Europe already, like all of our viewers.
Yeah, these European teams, everybody. Oh, dude, Boaster, fucking tactics, dude. I don't care. NA's gonna win. I thought about it a little bit during the break. We recorded the NA one, and then we're doing the EU one.
Yeah,
dude. Scream. See ya, dude. Screams. NA, I'm back on the NA train.
Okay, all right.
All my opinions have shifted since the last episode we did 5 minutes ago.
So just to maintain pure negativity in every video.
Yeah.
All right. This is your cheat sheet for if you have not been paying attention to Europe coming into Iceland, essentially. And I mean, judging by the viewership, ain't nobody been paying attention to Europe because unless Turkish teams are playing, no one's watching.
That group stage was popping off.
Yeah,
I mean, group stage was hitting. They were cracking like 200 or something for the groups. Well, Turkey was playing.
Yeah.
Ooh, and then grand finals. Goodbye.
Yeah, what was it, like 150K or something?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, it's still pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, no, the viewership wasn't bad. It's just not the same level of North America. Yeah. And I feel like that's a good place to begin because that is the storyline of Europe so far, I feel, in Valorant, is that even though it has very good teams, no one cares. No one's watching it.
Yeah.
And I think that is, honestly, the biggest narrative for me heading into Reykjavik is, can Europe play well enough so that people give a fuck? Like, seriously.
It is the direct opposite of what I said at the beginning of the NA one. Do NA deserve the viewers that they get? Well, do EU deserve to get more viewers? or maybe they don't. Maybe everyone's been right the whole time. It's just bad, boring. We'll just stick to 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
Or the other scenario, which is, they do deserve, but they won't get it no matter what, because that's just the nature of esports these days, is content creators over everything.
Yeah, I think, though, that whatever region does the best at Iceland overall is likely to get the reputation moving on, at least until Berlin, that is the region that's the best. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be true. For example, if Fnatic comes out and destroys everybody, but Liquid bombs out somehow, I'm not saying that that's a likely outcome, but if that did happen,
Crazy Raccoons make it all the way.
If Crazy Raccoons take down everyone's PCs and so they're able to win the entire event, that doesn't necessarily mean the region is better, but that's what people are going to assume, and I think that is going to add... I think that is going to add some reputation and therefore viewership to whatever region succeeds. And that, to me, is like what EU is playing for, more so than even just winning. They're playing to be household names because nobody really knows the players that are on the European teams other than people who are already big names, like Scream and like Yampi. Other than that, if you asked a random fan to name people that were on these teams, I don't even know whether they could, despite the fact that a lot of people have them as favorites to be able to make it really deep, or at least favorites to make it into grand finals.
Yeah. People like Boaster now because he's silly and funny.
I mean, Boaster's fantastic. He's a great personality. Yeah.
But other than that...
But he's really
We need to get Wyatt and Boaster in a room together and film some content because that shit would be so damn funny.
But I think, well, okay, do we want to, who do we want to start with?
Let's
start simple. I was about to cast a wide net. But
let's cast a small net. Let's do some line fishing. It's more sustainable.
Yeah.
Let's go for Liquid, because that was the team that was finished as the first seed coming out of Europe. And they're a crazy interesting team. I remember we actually did a First Strike preview video for Liquid as well.
I mean,
because Bren
did the whole thing.
Bren did the whole thing because it's one of Bren's favorite teams. Yeah. It has, or it had at the time, even more UK players playing for it, and the core of this team was called Fish 123, and they were dominant in the beta, and then they just didn't get anything together up until this year, and it still hasn't been amazing for Liquid. 2021 has been their best time since beta.
It's really this past month has been their.
They finished second at Red Bull. So
yeah, they've had. I think the thing is, they've had some decent showings, but I think their history has been muddled with. We just got knocked out of a group stage, or we got knocked out of a 256 team qualifier single elim tournament in like the round of 129 or whatever.
And they do lose to some worse teams. I mean, people like like Alliance, Rix. Guild is a
they haven't been defined by their semi-final finishes, or we made a grand final here and lost. They've been defined by the shortcomings, I feel.
Yes.
And that is what's primarily been discussed. In these big games, their players don't show up. Scream drops 78 kills on one map, but Soulcast gets 2. That's what they've been
Okay,
defined.
that didn't happen.
No, that happened, I think. I remember that. It was against... Who was it against? Rix? No. I don't know.
Okay. All right, let's take a look. I mean, actually, 70. I mean, you just randomly said a game.
Pretty sure you said 73. Like, what the hell?
And Scream drops 73, and then Links at minus 25.
See, I know what I'm talking about.
Anyway.
I know what I'm talking about. So,
okay.
But my point being, I think that has been the major public perception has defined Liquid by their shortcomings and their inability to succeed with Scream even going God mode in some of these games. I think that has defined them. And in this latest iteration, I think some of that load has been taken off Scream's shoulders in regards to the fragging. Maybe he can feel a bit more at ease that he doesn't need to be playing in this style, or he feels the pressure of, I got to get 3 kills every round or we're losing.
Yeah.
Because they have Yampy he brings a lot in regards to getting kills with the AWP. His ability to make space on entry. And that has allowed a bit more ease for Scream in his role, too.
Yeah.
But, someone else talk. I'm just rambling about...
Balla had a point that he wanted to interject with, so I wanted to see...
point.
What were you going to throw in there?
Well, I was amazed at Wyatt's prediction skills on that 73 kills thing. No, I think that's something for this team that, you're talking about their shortcomings and why they're defined by their shortcomings and stuff. And I think it makes sense because this is a team that at the beginning, when Scream joined, they had not yet lost a best of 3. And then everything goes to hell. Everything goes crazy. Yeah. They just start bombing out of group stages. Throughout all of the Ignition series time, it was just like, this isn't even really good. From a team that was like out of nowhere, everybody was like, oh my God, I'm so hype about this Fish 1-2-3 team, So I think it makes sense why they're defined by their shortcomings. But now it's completely different. I think this team is defined by some of the really cool stuff that they're trying to do. Some of the stuff that they're able to do with their Brimstone, for example, the fact that Jampy ends Screamer on this team enables them in some ways that other teams don't, but also they're doing innovative things at the same time. So it's kind of weird. I don't know how to feel about this team.
I also I do enjoy the narrative around Liquid's coaching as well. I feel like Sliggy's one of the most well-known coaches in the scene, even for people who don't really follow Europe. They'll still know Sliggy because he was heavily involved with
Cisco,
the CS scene, with his observing primarily. But then also was one of the earliest coaches to be picked up and to have like a vision for what he wanted his team to do in this game. And I think it's been absent for a while as the team didn't really find that success. But with the style that Liquid now plays, which is so much revolving around the exceptional amounts of utility that they have to be able to throw everywhere, that kind of narrative is seriously going to start coming back, because even though I want to separate strategy and tactics here as well, because tactics tend to be like set plays that you go for, whereas your strategy is your overarching composition and how it plays in the map overall. Liquid's strategy play is really strong. They've found a composition that works exceptionally well in the meta right now, even though they don't play very much Astra and everybody else is thinking of it as an Astra meta. They've gone in a slightly different tangent, leaning really heavily into the Viper, and they've found something that works for them. And that, I think, is the story of Liquid right now, is it's working for them. Is it the best? Is it something that they can beat other teams with? Is their read of like Brim being extremely good right now valid? Because it's no one else is doing that. Not really, anyway. Fnatic does it on Bind, but Liquid are doing it everywhere. They're playing Brimstone when it comes to Haven. They're playing Brimstone when it comes to Split as well. These are Astra maps for everyone else. Well, no, not on Icebox. No one plays.
One we're not doing that.
Yeah, but no one plays. No one plays Astra or Brim on Icebox.
Unless practice PCs with default accounts that everybody was forced to play on for the first day.
Yeah, they for me at the moment they are so defined by Yampy and his presence on the team since coming in, and
they never had an AWPer before. That was always a big thing,
and that was
Liquid.
something that was always on their mind, on Sliggy's mind when there was that period of time where they were trialing Yugi not even trialing, they were subbing him just to, I don't know, but they were testing him as an AWPer because they knew they needed someone to AWP, but they didn't have someone to AWP.
They had Link Op for a while. They had Eccles, actually, their former IGL op a little bit too.
But now they have a dedicated AWPer in Yampy and a dedicated Inter in Yampy as well on attack. And it's working though. And I think as time has gone on, he's seemed to become more refined in his inting a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. And also, as of recent, there was, it was up in the air for Yampy, who was previously competing in CSGO, but had a ban due to he had an account that had cheats on it when he was I don't know, 6 or something.
He said he sold the account to somebody else.
Yeah, he sold the account. Someone cheated on it. He was 6 years old. He just wanted to get some money for, I don't know, Minecraft. And he recently he got unbanned from CSGO, and he has decided to commit fully to Valorant.
Yes.
He had said on his stream.
Yeah.
Which is a good mental space for him to be in moving forward, and with Iceland and everything as well, that he knows this is where his focus is going to be. His team knows for sure as well that this is where his focus is going to be. So that's all good. But for me, this iteration has been defined by him. His opping on defense and him just dashing in at any given moment on attack, whether it be a good or a bad time, he'll just dash in, he'll updraft around, he's going to float around on Jett, and he's going to try to create space. And I really feel that they have lived or died by his ability on Jett to either find entries or not in a lot of cases. And I think that has been less prevalent as his understanding of the timings has gone up over the past month. Because, I mean, if you look back to the games where they qualified, for instance,
he was all over the place.
He was all over the place, but as soon as he was playing well, they won so clearly.
Yeah.
When, for instance, if you go back to the crucial game was the one against BDS in the qualifier. It was the game that decided whether or not they would qualify. First map, Haven, Scream, again, drops 31. They lose. Yampy he's going in, and he's just dying on every entry. Game 2, it's coming down to the wire on Bind. Link gets some clutch rounds. Link is a really clutch player for them at the moment. In regards to actually just clutching rounds when it's just him alive. He wins a high number of them. He won a clutch, and then at the end of the second map, Yampy starts feasting on every entry. And then map 3, Ascent, he's going off for the entirety of the map. They coast to a win, and they qualify. I feel that they so much live or die by his performance, and as his level continues to go up, I think they'll find more consistency, which I think has already been the case to an extent.
Because during Challengers Finals, you didn't really see the downsides of Yampy that much. He was just extremely good. He really grew into his own. Also, just phenomenally consistent AWPer. He's not the guy that's going to do the crazy jump peaks or the wild aggressive shit, but every single time someone's in front of his crosshair, they die. It's ridiculous, the guy's level of consistency. His reaction times and his precision are so high. It feels oppressive to play against him. And that's just, I'm speaking as if I have played against him, but when you're watching other teams and they're trying to work around him, if you give him just a moment, if your utility's off by a fraction of a second, he's still going to be able to find the kill. He's extremely skilled.
You might not see him do the crazy shit because he's most of the time when we got these flashy off kills, he was playing Killjoy on Haven.
Yes,
so he just literally can't. But he does. It did feel like in all the times where we see him really, really opping hard, he hits literally every single shot that he really needs to hit, the one that matters the most, right? When there's a team that starts their execute or whatever, he takes out the one that he needs to take out. So it's really, really nice, and I can't wait to see it more. I think Yampy is a weird case though for me because I don't think we really saw too much. Like he's a CS star, right? Because of his time with Ents and some of the other stuff that he's able to pull off throughout. But I don't think he really participated in high level tournaments like this yet. You know, like not on LAN, not at the level of Masters Reykjavik. I don't think he's been there yet.
Really? Yeah. I mean, this is just silly. I mean, that's just ridiculous, isn't it?
It's just some Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 phase montage.
I mean, that's absurd. That makes no sense.
Simple vibes right there. I'm just terrified.
I think he has played at LAN though. He has. Yes. Right. Yeah. I'm pretty ignorant of the CS scene, but I think it's quite unlikely that he comes in and underperforms at this event, for example. But overall, I'm glad you brought that up, though, because I think that the biggest enemy of Team Liquid is not any other team. It's actually themselves and their own level of performance that they're going to be able to bring at Reykjavik. Because these questions about Liquid choking or having underperformances in big games, I don't feel have been invalid questions. It hasn't always been the reason that they've lost. Sometimes they just haven't had a great strategy, and so the players don't have a good idea of what they need to do, so they look terrible. And it's only people like Scream who can brute force their way through a game who actually look good. But that isn't because the other players are bad. It's because Scream is godly. But for this, God, that's brutal. For Reykjavik, Liquid are expected to do well. Number one team coming out of Europe, and their players have actually been. What, sorry?
Number one scene.
No, number one scene. Number one team coming out of Europe, and their players have all been performing well recently in Challengers Finals. People who had questions around them, people like Soulcast or Cryptics, or even Link, because there was a time where Link was also really heavily underperforming too. Those guys have all been playing really well recently. But I don't know whether that's been fixed, whether that issue has really been fixed. And these UK guys have not had this level of competition before. Coming into Valorant, it's been a new situation for them. They've played in some big games now. They've played in some semis, some finals as well. They played in the final of Red Bull and the semis of like First Strike as well. No, sorry, that would be quarters where they lost to Heretics. But they've had some big games against tough opposition. The problem is most of those times they've crumbled.
Right.
And so despite the fact they've looked phenomenal in their run, I still think there's a big question of whether or not they're actually going to be able to bring it on the big stage.
Yeah, sure. And
to me, the only way, the only way that Team Liquid completely bombs out is if that happens. Is if their players simply flump. And I think that's got to be something that is in the back of their minds after it's happened now a few times.
Yeah. I think that is pretty fair. That might be, I think, the biggest
concern.
That it's definitely the biggest concern.
Yeah, I think.
But it might be the biggest. Maybe it's not the biggest narrative about the team going in, but it's a crucial one. I think that is going to be. That might be the biggest factor as to whether or not they make a deep run.
I seriously think their biggest challenge is themselves. Yeah. Because they can beat any team. They really can. I mean, they're neck and neck essentially with Fnatic, but Liquid have a much deeper map pool.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about that as well. Their Bind is absolutely world class. Their Haven is absolutely world class as well. They normally permaban Icebox and they beat Fnatic on it, and Fnatic are fantastic too. Yeah. Their attacking rounds are just so deadly when you have Scream and Yampy if they're actually on fire. Yeah, just a phenomenal team. They're split. They've recently just brought out the Brimstone and the Viper again there. So whereas their split was atrocious previously, their split now looks like they have some clue, like they're porting over the same comp to split. That might not end up being what they actually play at Iceland, but they at least have some idea of what they want to do there. And their Ascent, they have like a 90% win rate on it or something. Domestically, within Europe, it's crazy what they've been able to do on that map. So this team is well-rounded across the board. You could point at their split and their icebox as being weaker areas for them, but they're not bad. None of them are permaban maps. It's not like they have a hole, really, in their game at all.
And if you look at their bracket as well, they are on the easier side of the bracket. They're going to probably play against a weakened version 1 who don't have their full roster.
Yeah.
And then after that, they're playing either against Sharks or Newturn.
I mean, yeah.
And
whoever makes it through there, Liquid are going to be the favorites.
If Liquid don't make it into the upper final, something has gone wrong.
Yes.
There has been some individual error, most likely, if they don't make it to the upper final. Because it looks like they should win. They should make it through convincingly.
Looking at this bracket, Liquid should be the on-paper favorites. Because they are going to make it so deep through the upper before they face a challenging team. In terms of what we expect, right? It's going to be the upper final before they face a podium-level team. And then they're going to get knocked down to very deep into the lower bracket. True. And they like essentially have a head start because they don't have to have the same situation as Fnatic, Sentinels, Vikings, where they're going to run into each other in the quarters or semis.
Yeah. I mean, if version 1 had their full 5, I could see them giving Liquid a bit of trouble, but they should still win that. And then past that, Sharks or Newturn, maybe Newturn could give them some trouble on bind. But even then, Liquid's bind has been they turned it around.
Class.
I mean, what used to be their throw map, they would always let bind through and then lose on it. But now it is one of their very solid maps, and that is Newturn's best map. They should be making it, again, they should make it to the upper final. If they don't, something has gone wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm just looking forward to that version 1 Liquid match, the Haven, if they play Haven.
That's going to be
so much fun.
Just double Viper
visual
on
clutter.
Haven.
You won't be able to see anything.
Yeah. Well, that's
Astra and Brim too. It's literally all of the different control. Well, minus Omen. Just so much fun.
It is crazy, but that is such an interesting clash because both of the teams have very different ideas about how the meta works. Even though they both play with we are so zoomed in. Even though they both play
a skin advertisement.
That was actually sick.
Prime fan.
To run it back at the same to zoom out. Oh, damn, crazy. I didn't know you got the animations like this.
Very cinematic. Even though they both play with the Viper, Liquid really are defined right now as the team that believes Brimstone is good. I don't know the only team that believes Brimstone is good.
Oh, and to be clear, the NA teams, when the other teams they see this Brimstone, they laugh. They scoff
absolutely.
at
They
Sliggy
sneer
and
at Brim.
silly
something
Brim
that we
ideas.
don't know. What is it that they know?
But
I do think that is a serious talking point about the meta right now going in. Is Liquid are the I don't want to say they're the only team playing Brim because a lot of the European teams play Brim on Bind, but they're the only team playing Brim outside of Bind. And they play it, like I said, on Haven. They play it on Split. Those are really unusual maps to be bringing out the Brim in this meta. Astra is just basically considered by every other team to be straight up better in those circumstances. And Liquid are flying in the face of that and still being able to be extraordinarily successful. So that's another big question.
What word you just said throughout that entire Brim thing. The thing that it's cutting in and out again is happening. So maybe we need to
okay. Well, Brim equal good. Okay, we fixed that issue. No problem. Easy peasy. And now on to the players to watch. Because I think we've already discussed Yampi, clearly a player to watch because you were saying they live or die by his entrying sometimes. His opping is so consistently good. Another player to watch, Scream. I mean, come on, right? Like, that's got to be an obvious one. But also, Scream is weird because he doesn't play, or at least he's starting to transition away from playing the just strictly duelist agents for them, too. He's playing Sage on a couple of their maps now. And who knows what he's going to end up playing as they evolve.
OG agent.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah,
back
he used to play
Stone Age.
a ton of Sage back
We
in
were
like
playing
beta.
Valorant with rocks and sticks, learning how to create fire. He played a lot of Sage back then.
But he is also playing the Phoenix for them at times. He has played the Jett for them, though he's not going to really be doing that now that Yumpy is on the team. But this is somebody who very, very consistently is going to be able to give you a large amount of kills. And they've moved away. When they were playing at First Strike, they played a like feed, scream all the kills kind of style. And they're not doing that anymore. They're trying to spread the burden much more evenly across the whole of the team.
No, Scream was he was a dom and he had his little sub pets flashing for him, following him around.
Eccles on a leash behind him,
doing his bidding. And Scream just got every kill every round, trying to carry them.
Yeah,
it was that didn't work. Almost worked, but it didn't.
Yeah,
he has. I was saying this earlier, but he has a bit more of a relaxed role on the team with Yampy being able to step up to the plate and create space and find these entries. There's less weight on his shoulders. He can be more of a role player. He always seems to really shine on the Sage too, honestly. Even when you're talking about like way back in the day.
Yeah.
He was excellent on Sage. Yeah. I think one of the main things with Scream for me is just that in Valorant, because of there's agents in this game, and because of them, it's far easier to fit into a role and know what your role is, what you need to do.
Sure.
And I think that was always, at least going back into the ancient history of Counter-Strike.
The archives.
Yeah, into the deep archives of the 2000s. He always struggled to find his place on a team and find his role. And I think that has assisted him and a number of other players, honestly, in Valorant, that the roles are so outlined. You know what you need to accomplish. And also, I mean, and still, his mechanics in this game are just outrageous.
Yeah.
So he is, I mean, he has an opportunity at this tournament to prove that he's the best player in the world.
That's a bold... Wow. That's a bold statement, but I suppose he does, really, if they dominate and he looks like a standout player.
Yeah, if they win and he puts up his numbers that he always does, I don't see how you could argue against him being the best player in the world right now.
Okay, I mean, that's a really cool narrative that I hadn't honestly even really considered. Because I don't think Scream has been in that candidacy up until now.
He hasn't been in the convo because Liquid haven't been in the convo. So he's been just floating outside. Like, everyone knows he's nuts, but they haven't had the results. Like, you can't... I mean, you can be the best player in the world and not win tournaments, but it's not that they're not winning tournaments. It's that they're flumping out.
They're not even there. Yeah,
they're not present. So
yeah. And also, I feel
I was thinking of like the simple narrative back when, where it's like, oh, he's the best player in the world, and everybody's like, no, but they don't. Now he's not winning tournaments, man. He's not winning tournaments.
Yeah. Okay, what? I guess we've already talked about the chances actually of Liquid. We expect them to. Yeah, go on.
Link should be a player to watch in my mind too.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
This guy's a clutch maniac. I honestly think one of the major reasons they're here has been because of Link's clutches down the line in some of the crazy games that they.
I mean, they would have lost to BDS. They would have 100% lost to that BDS team. Because Liquid were a worse team at that point in time if Link didn't pull off those crazy clutches,
Yeah, I mean, it was 2 1v3s or maybe a 1v4 sprinkled in there that just like that you really don't expect Link to be winning. But I think in order for Liquid to beat all the best teams in the world, the best teams here at Iceland, they need Link to be doing things like that. Because I think they will be challenged. And once they're challenged, they like it can't just be Scream and Yampy, right? That's just like kind of an average thing that'll keep them up. They need some sort of big plays to keep them inside of the game. And additionally, I just think that you need to be watching this man and his Cryptics and him when they play Brim. I think they swap off on individual maps, but their mollies, like every time they pull that thing out, I'm like, ooh, where's it gonna go? Yeah, big plays from him. We should watch him. We should watch him big time. Isn't he the IGL too, or is it somebody else?
No, it's been Soulcast and Scream that have been IGLing for this team. So yeah, after they got rid of Eccles, actually I was saying on Plat that I didn't think this iteration of Yeah, I mean, that's crazy clutch. I didn't think this iteration of Liquid would be the successful one because I didn't understand who was going to step up an IGL for them. But actually, they're IGLing, and overall their strategy has been better than ever. They've found a structure. They play an extremely structured style where everybody knows their role. It's not like Sentinels where they're super adaptable. Liquid are playing Liquid's game, and you're forced to adapt to them because they're playing with a huge amount of oppressive utility, really cool kind of synergy between the agents, and then Yampi's op, which is, again, oppressive because you don't exactly know where it's going to come from. And that combination means that most of the time, Liquid are not the team that has to adapt. It's the other team having to adapt to them.
Yeah. I think that's super cool. I really like the idea of like Sliggy coming into his element with the team and being able to add all that strategic value, but also the players themselves too. I think that'll be something cool to watch for sure.
And huge credit to Soulcast and Scream for being able to do that.
I am wondering if this team can show two versions at Iceland, because I feel like they have the ability to go back to Scream Reyna to bring, just go full send with Yampy and play a more traditional style from them, from some of the earlier maybe you can just call it stage 1, the meta in stage 1, for example, rather than the Brim Viper and some of the other stuff, just to like what happens when you go up against version 1. That's a team that plays Viper Astra, for example, and what, like how will their styles clash, or will Liquid just completely flip the switch and go crazy on a different style? I think they have the ability to do that more so than other teams.
What are the expectations here? The bookies don't have them as the favorite. They have Sentinels. Did you not see that post? There was a post on
the bookies.
There was a post. It was the first odds that were released. On Reykjavik. They had Sentinels at the top, and then some other people. I can't exactly remember the order.
Kurt, can you pull up the bookies?
Oh, it's crazy
Give
interesting.
Me the odds.
Here it is. Look at
bookies,
this,
bro. It's just Brent in a back room, just like fiddling with the numbers.
Oh my god! I mean, I'm betting my life savings on Vikings later.
That is not financial advice. Do not do this.
I mean, those odds are outrageous, though. They're below version 1.
Okay, well, we'll go back to that when we do our South America region recap as well. But yes, these
guys. In a few weeks, I'm either going to be living on the street or I'm going to be fucking rich. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, don't take risks like that, people. And only gamble if it's responsible and legal.
You only live once.
No, shut up. Devil on your shoulder. Shut up. Okay. The chances. We were saying they should be making the upper bracket final. Otherwise, something's gone terribly wrong. Probably something internal as well. Or maybe they come up with a weird strat that doesn't quite work for them and end up losing a match because of it. But overall, where should they be finishing?
Podium.
1, 2, 3.
Podium.
What do you think, Balla?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Flaming take.
To me, I feel like this team will be disappointed if they don't make grand finals. I feel like even third is I feel like even third would be
this crazy feeling that I'm on board with podium and stuff like that, but I just have this feeling I'm like are we overrating Liquid? Are we overrating Liquid?
I mean, the thing is, though, seriously, if they don't make the upper final, it's a devastatingly poor performance, right? Yeah. Like, that isn't... Losing to version 1 is... They've just had a sub. There's no way that should be happening. Losing to Sharks on Newturn, again, they're like a tier below. That should not be happening as well. Unless we're very, very wrong about how good Europe is, or they choke massively. This team is making the upper final. They're dropping down to the lower bracket at worst case scenario, and they should be set for a third place.
I think the most dangerous team on their run here is going to be Newturn. That is the only hurdle that they must jump. Yep, I'm going to say it.
Why?
What?
I'm telling you, the most dangerous team on the run is going to be Newturn
because they play differently.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's the one that they have the skill. They have good individuals on Newturn.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
And they're gonna throw them a fucking curveball, and they might miss the swing.
Okay.
I'm fine with that actually.
So
Okay.
that's the only one I would be any amount of concern about on this run here.
Okay.
If version 1 had their full thing, full roster, I could see version 1 giving them some trouble, but with the sub, doesn't seem entirely likely. I'm going to say New Turn is the only one that could give them some trouble, but they should be making the upper finals. And if they make the upper finals, they're already in what then, like the top 4 automatically?
No, I think they're guaranteed third.
Or is it top 3 automatically? So they got to be going for podium finish. If they don't, that's
why I'm saying I think grand finals
I mean,
minimum should be the expectations for Liquid. I think that you should be disappointed if they end up even going out in third. Because this is a team that's...
I don't know if that's entirely true. Because they're going to have to beat either Sentinels, Vikings, or Fnatic in the top half. And then they're going to have to beat another one of those teams.
One or the other. They either need to beat in the upper or they need to beat in the lower.
They need to... So they have 2 chances to beat one of those teams. Most likely one of those teams.
Yeah, so
unless New Turn...
Their only interactions at Reykjavik against tier 1 opposition, they lose them both, ended third. Dude. And that wouldn't be disappointing? I think that would be disappointing.
That's actually a good point.
I'm on the train, and I also think that it will happen because they won't get that experience. Like the only time to play the big matches is to get like it is up in the upper bracket final and down in the lower bracket final, where that's already the concern. It's like, are these guys gonna choke? They don't have the LAN experience. If that happens all the way deep down there, that's so scary.
No, absolutely. It totally is. And I definitely could see that being something realistic. I'm saying that would still be disappointing, but it's realistic. Mm-hmm. I do think that that's a genuine thing that could happen. Like, I think that's a really common way that the bracket could play out.
That is a very good point, though, actually. That they're going to play top teams. Presumably, they're going to play some of the top teams only 2 times. They have to win 1 out of 2. And they've already shown that they've won. I mean, they beat Fnatic.
Yeah.
So they would have to either do that again or, I think you're right, actually. So they they have to make at least podium. Yes. Otherwise, disaster is struck. Yes. But they should be gunning for the finals.
And it's partly because that side of the bracket looks significantly easier.
I think I've found where I feel this like sketchiness for me with Liquid. It's that Challengers Finals run, or not Challengers Finals. Sorry, the Challengers 3 to get into Challengers Finals when we were all like, "What the fuck? Liquid is back! Like they're back!" Was they played against BDS, but they played against CU Calling in the quarterfinals. Like I feel like they got an easy run towards getting into the Challengers Finals, and then they just looked phenomenal in groups where they needed to against FPX. That's 2 instances, you know.
But to me. Balla, the reason that I have confidence in that is that they changed something. It wasn't just them randomly playing well in Challengers Finals. Every time they changed their composition, they saw success. And it leads me to believe that they are figuring things out that work for them. Like their unveiling of that 0 duelist comp on Haven saw them 13-0 smash Oxygen. Their adaptations to their bind composition, whereas previously it was shit, they pull out the Brimstone, pull out the Scream on Sage, and they're being able to win against very, very good teams, and they only lose to the absolute best, probably in the world, Fnatic on bind. And then on Split as well, they're shit against Fnatic when they're running their former composition. They change to run the Brim and the Viper. They end up beating Fnatic. So I feel like there's a reason every time. And I think that reason they will have identified as well. It's not just variance in how they play, which leads me to be confident that they can replicate it in the future.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that pit has all of a sudden dissipated. Thank you.
Until they go against New Turn. UK guys are shaky. Because they're going to go. They should be easy.
They should be easy games, and then suddenly
we're a podium team. These are going to be easy.
Suddenly
games.
they're 5-7 down at the half. Oh
well, they miss a couple shots. Allow he's open. He's winning the duels. Yampy's like, who is this guy? And then all of a sudden, Breach TPs behind them on Vine, ults them in showers. What do they do then? What do they do then? That's the big question.
Okay.
Wyatt fanfic. Let's go.
I like it. I'm on board for it. let's move on to talking about Fnatic, because Fnatic are a genuinely phenomenal team that are coming out of Europe as well. And they're, okay, the one overarching narrative that we didn't talk about for Europe, but it certainly applies, is that they're the only region that's sending 2 teams on the same tier. Like, all the other regions that are sending 2 teams, one is significantly better than the other. Vikings is a lot better than Sharks. There's a whole tier difference there by the look of it. Sentinels is a lot better than version 1, and version 1 are playing with a sub, so that's really unfortunate. But there's a significant tier difference there. All of the other regions don't have multiple teams to send. Europe is sending 2 who are neck and neck. Now, if you're a hater of Europe, you could say, well, they're both tier 2. They're both not as good, right? And that would be that could end up playing out. I don't think that that's the case. I think they're both quite excellent teams, and so that just inherently gives Europe an advantage because their second best team is still very competent. What are the overall storylines for Fnatic heading into Iceland? Because for me, it's carrying on that theme of like Summon FC and Boaster, but with added firepower.
This might be maybe I might be a glass half emptying my view on Fnatic, but I'm almost wondering, when do they stumble? I mean, I know they lost the finals to Liquid, but those aren't the most. It's a
seeding game.
It's a seeding.
Well, it's not a seeding game.
It's not a seeding game. It's a title game, but it's not the most important game of their lives. In fact, it was less important than the previous game that they played in that tournament. So they did lose the finals, but they didn't get blown out. It was still a close game.
3-2. It was as close as it could be, right?
Right. So my big question is still, it's kind of when do Fnatic just get whacked upside the head and really have to figure something out with this new iteration? Because I still don't feel that that's really happened to them.
Yeah.
I mean, even the Liquid team that beat them, they had won in the previous seeding final, and so they've traded those back and forth now.
Yes, yeah. They are absolutely neck and neck with Liquid. It's very hard to say that one is significantly better than the other right now.
But I feel that Fnatic were more so than Liquid. I feel that Fnatic were riding the high of the new roster and the nutty firepower that has been injected into their team with Durka, and then having that duo of the Doma Dirk just slamming. So it's
Doma Dirk.
It's
Doma Dirk. Okay.
It's been that duo that has won them so many rounds, and I swear it has not been acknowledged how many goddamn rounds Fnatic just fast hit sites and just blow the other team up.
Yeah,
because they don't miss.
No,
like they're
crazy.
not. They absolutely have an excellent leader in Boaster. They have a nice approach to the game in that regard, and how he leads his team. And historically, they've always brought interesting new ideas to the table.
Yeah.
Whether it be a wacky stratting around, like running a Killjoy ult down Haven mid and putting it in the attacker spawn near.
Yeah.
Like, they'll do that kind of stuff, and it's cool. But right now, this iteration has been defined for me by the firepower. Everything is clicking. This is exactly what they needed in regards to the roster, but it's still just a question for me of what they do with it as time goes on. And I will say, though, I have a lot of confidence in them, in their work ethic, in regards to making everything click and continuing the success, and just their overall approach to the game, their ability to innovate. I mean, lest we forget, their bind comp has become the meta on that map. I mean, they figured something out on that map that no one else had.
And we're talking months ago they figured that out with the Brim Viper stuff.
So
that was pre-Viper buffs.
I have a lot of confidence in them, but I feel that the Fnatic we've seen has been defined by everything clicking, insane firepower, and some honeymooning. Where does it go from there? That's my big question, and this is the real test for them.
All right, where's it going, Balla?
It's going up, baby. Let's go. I'm all aboard the Boaster train. All the experience stuff that we said for Liquid, I'm like, yeah, it might still apply for Fnatic. It might very well apply for Fnatic, but it feels different to me. This feels like a team they're all really, really good friends. They're all with the same goal. Like, I mean, I'm sure you could say that for Liquid too, but this feels like, I don't know. It just feels like they all have this camaraderie that I want to get behind, that I really want them to succeed and do very well. Maybe it's because of Boaster, but just in general, Doma and Mystic are the same type of way that I feel like, yeah, well, they might be honeymooning, but now we're actually going on the honeymoon to Iceland. You know? Like now we're actually taking a vacation.
Sure, now is when you need to peak.
Exactly. I think that could very well be a thing for them.
Yeah, let's address the again, the same question that we had for Liquid. Are they going to be their own worst enemies? Because there's nobody on this team that I can think of that's been choking in big games. I don't think that that's been a narrative at any point. But there are a lot of people here that don't have experience. They don't have a lot of experience from big games in Counter-Strike or even big games in Valorant particularly, other than this run that Fnatic made. You know, they've been hanging around the top for a while, and Doma and Mystic and Boaster as the core of this team have been good for a while and have been playing in some big matches. They played in the finals of First Strike, for example. But I don't feel like they've been battle-tested yet on the same level that they will be in Reykjavik. And definitely, at the moment, Durkin and Doma's firepower is a large reason of why their attacking rounds are working. And I do think that they, more so even than Liquid, if their big hitters drop off. So wait, for Liquid though, the people who drop off are the support players. And so you can still get rounds where they muscle their way through with Scream and Yampi. Because there's no way Scream or Yampi are dropping off at Reykjavik. It just doesn't make sense. But for Fnatic, you could see a scenario in which Durka and Doma don't turn up on the same level. I don't think it's likely. There's been no history of it. But whenever there's somebody turning up to their first LAN event and a first event of this size, albeit there is no crowd, so there's no additional nerve pressure in that sense, but you've got to consider that could be a thing where they aren't able to hit the same highs that they've been able to previously whilst playing in their bedroom. Right? That is a thing that happens fairly frequently. Especially when we're talking about online versus LAN.
Yeah.
As for the firepower overall, though, what a nasty, nasty team. If they perform anything like they've been performing online, Durka and Doma are probably the best duo, like in terms of firepower that you've got here. For an entry duo, who's better? Sick and Tens? I'd still rather take Durka and Doma, I think.
I wouldn't really call them an entry duo either. Like,
sure, but I actually think that. Wait, who? You mean Sick and Tens?
Sick and Tens. Yeah.
I think they do operate sometimes. Like Tens on his entries.
I think
is
when
pretty
Tens
good
is
at making
entering,
space for
he's
Sick.
not with Sick, is what I'm saying. You know.
Sure. Yeah, they don't work together as a unit in the same way that Durka and Doma did, or even in the way that Sentinels used to. It's much more loose flowing. But in terms of like the firepower at the front of a team, I think Fnatic might be ahead of most other teams right now with Durka and Doma. They are just so nasty.
It almost feels like Liquid is the only one who can who responds in terms of entering power like that.
Sure. Because they have some nasty players too.
Scream. And sometimes, Yampi as well.
This is also a team where they've injected firepower across the board too, because they've added Magnum in as well, who you just saw being able to win that clutch on 1 HP. But he is low-key extremely good too. He's not going to be winning them every round. He's not going to be impactful in every round. But when he's required, his anchoring is good. The utility usage is extremely creative, and he can still perform in like clutch scenarios like that. This team is extremely well-rounded. Previously, they were a team that had a lot of good strategy and tactics, but not really the firepower. Now they've got the full package.
Yeah.
I think because of all of that, like, this is a team that can go really far, or they're just going to go really badly. Like, I think there's a full range because of it. Because of how, everything I was saying about, like, the camaraderie and all the, like, they either do very, very, very well because everything gels on their honeymoon, or they argue like and they tilt and they should get divorced right away at the end of this. That's the two different scenarios that I can see from this team.
I don't see that much.
I just feel like they're
implosion.
that wide.
Right. I don't see that much implosion ability with Fnatic unless their players really choke. I don't think, though, that they have, like, they don't seem like they have aggressive players or players that are going to actually clash and argue in that way. I know you were making the marriage analogy, but I think that they're clearly a team with very set hierarchy as well. They have Boaster as the IGL and and then Coach Mini as well, who are kind of dictating the way the game should be played to the others. And I think that has set up a really good team structure where you know who's accountable and you know. And also they have a lot of respect, I think, for Boaster because he's been able to do so much with unknown people, to be honest, when he first turned up in the scene.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they owe a lot to him. I think I already seeing on Twitter the other day, it was just them like praising him. But that's not kind of what I meant. I just feel like during the times where they did struggle against Ballista and the times where they struggled throughout a stage 1, I was kind of thinking like, oh, they're all kind of choking at the same time all together. Like they shouldn't be playing this poorly, against a team of Ballista's caliber. Or even the FPX and whatnot, like even against Alliance when they didn't make it through the first time through Challengers 1. That was kind of the feeling always. It's just like
with the former team though as well, right?
With the former team, but I think there's something to be said about that. Like the games that they struggled in against like Wave or Ballista, in the sense that those were just teams that had a unique approach and
very fast-paced, aggressive teams,
right? Which they were, and using some agents at the time that weren't really used, like the Phoenix, etc.
And the Sky.
Yeah, sure. And they were just unable to adapt to the pace in the moment. And now that can be due to the personnel, but presumably some of that is also the top-down approach, not an ability to change the game plan within that actual game.
Did they just Reyna devour these teams and all of a sudden become this fast-paced, aggressive team?
Yeah, I mean,
genuinely,
I think that's Durka.
No,
right?
it is.
They
They really did. I mean, they took something from all the teams that they lost to, and now they've just become this superpower. But
yeah. Now go on. Sorry.
No, I was going. We can get to the expectations if that's where you're going to get to. But really, for me, I feel like this team, they have the makings of, okay, they could be the best team in this era of Valorant.
Yeah.
Will they realize that potential? Because I think
that's how I felt with them before, though. Like I guess I'm
before
trying to temper
which
myself.
Before?
Summon FC.
Did you
really? Hell yeah!
See,
I was like, holy shit! Like they're playing this.
I think the style they played was wonderful and very tactical. They were the thinking man's team.
But
they didn't have the individuals, not just skill, but adaptability to be able to deal with a curveball being thrown at them. Whereas this team now makes decisions at a much faster pace, and has players that are more adaptable and can deal with other weird shit being thrown at them. So
yeah,
I feel like this is, it's Fnatic 2.0 what you're watching right now.
But I feel like this is the tournament where we get to see if they realize their potential or not, because it looks like they have all the pieces in place. Does it actually come together? Because they could be the best team in Valorant in this era.
Yeah.
The tagline? Fnatic, realize your potential. Both are just like, yay!
I want to address one of my problems with Fnatic though as well, and the reason, because we've talked a lot about them as this incredible team. They're well-rounded. They've got the strategy. They've got the IGL. They've got the firepower. They're extremely good. They run a lot of fast-paced stuff. They've got a lot of defensive aggression. They're so good. To me, the big area where they fall down at the moment is their map pool. Is just bringing all of those ideas across the board to many different maps. Their Bind, probably best in the world for my money. Their Haven, I think also probably best in the world, though that is definitely a big test against some of these other teams. Like Sharks and Vikings have both been good on Haven recently. Sentinels, historically fantastic at Haven too. But I think that I just love the way that Fnatic play, and I think it's going to be really good against everybody else. But when it gets to their Icebox defense and their split in general, they don't have that many good ideas. Their Ascent is pretty decent, but their split is just unknown right now. They were running triple duelist on it with Boaster playing Reyna, and that's not going to be good enough to be able to get you wins against any team that plays it seriously. And most of the crop of teams we have at Iceland don't even play Split that well. And so it's not going to be a powerful pick. All. Yeah, or they just straight up ban it.
They might play against Vikings early, very possible. Or the Brazilian teams just don't play it.
Yeah. I mean, it would be hard for them to even play it against version 1 because of how the bracket match up, but there's another team that plays Split.
Yeah, I mean,
a little bit.
Sentinels on Split.
But then Sentinels are really weird. Like, they used to be incredible at Split, and now they're a bit all over the place. But that is a clear hole in their map pool right now. And even their Icebox attack looks phenomenal. And yet their defense, they just couldn't hold back Liquid at all. And they ended up losing on that map, and they lost the finals because they couldn't convert on their Icebox defense. And I think that those are some serious flaws at the moment with Fnatic. When you compare them to Liquid, who are good across the board. Fnatic, to me, Fnatic lives or dies by their map preparation. And because they're coming into maps with a great idea of what they want to do, here's the strats that we want to run, here's the style we want to play.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a really good grasp of that, if Boaster hasn't put in extraordinary time to building that out, then they're just good. They're not great. They're not world class. And I think on the run up to Iceland, that's going to be a real test for Fnatic. Have they got something new for Split, which makes them competent? Have they refined their Ascent to be world class, or their Icebox defense to be world class? Because if you just add one more map to Haven and Bind, this team could just sweep the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, the more you're talking about that, and I'm thinking about them going to be playing Sentinels in their first game.
Yeah.
That could be rough for them, actually, with the maps.
I mean, Crew is actually their first game.
Like is it?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
But Sentinels is going to be their first tier 1 competition. I haven't watched Crew yet,
so I don't know how good they are.
Yeah,
so I'm just assuming that they're going to be playing against Sentinels. But Crew could be nasty. Haven't watched them yet. I'm going to assume they're playing Sentinels.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about the maps. That could actually be a pretty rough series for them. Let's say, they ban Split. Sentinels are probably going to ban Bind.
Well, Sentinels actually have been banning Ascent recently.
Yes.
But I would ban Bind against Fnatic,
I would presume they're going to ban Bind.
I think that's up in the air, though. It
could be up in the air, but I feel that they're going to try and not play Bind.
I think Fnatic wins on Bind or Ascent, though. Whichever one is not.
But what I'm thinking about is Sentinels on Icebox. I have some confidence in them, especially they had the weird period with Dapper with the Sova and all that. But when Sick is on Sage, Shazam is playing Jett. The way that they approach it on attack as well.
Well, Sick is going to be on Sova now.
Or sorry, rather Sick. Yeah. Sorry, Sick on Sova, but Dapper on Sage. Yeah. Sorry, but with that comp, I could see them giving Fnatic a lot of trouble on Icebox. And then if the other maps are Ascent and Haven?
Yeah, I think that just comes down to who's better at Haven, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a very close series if we get there. And if they do decide to ban Bind.
Yeah.
But a 5-map pool. I think we're reading way too much in the map pool.
You think?
Yeah.
I think it comes into it so much. Like for teams that have
I want to go for that as well, but just feels like 4 maps is or not even 4 maps. Like some of the times it's like they just have to prep 3 maps. But in general, like that's very doable for teams to have at a high level. And yeah, we could look at win rates all day, but at the end of the day, we haven't really seen them against each other on different metas. So yeah, I think it's kind of a moot point, honestly.
Well, expectations. That's where we're getting to here. Final point for Fnatic. Where do we see them? Because I think they are a very similar level to Team Liquid and maybe even have higher peaks, but they are on a much rougher side of the bracket. I mean, you couldn't get...
I mean, they put Vikings, Sen, and Fnatic.
If Crew is good as well, Vikings were saying that Crew should have been like the second team to come out of Brazil if they were competing in Brazil. If we haven't watched them yet, so we'll wait until... in fact, actually, when this comes out, it'll be tomorrow when we're doing our main episode, and we'll be talking about Crew then as well. But if Crew is also a tier 1 team or tier 1.5, That is a horrible side of the bracket. Absolutely brutal. So what are your expectations for Fnatic? Where do they go?
I mean, yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm not even gonna attempt to use an iota of brain power to figure out the lower bracket.
No,
if
let's do this then.
But
upper bound and lower bound. So like upper bound, what do you think best case scenario for Fnatic is? Because I think best case scenario, they just win it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the question that they just win and make it to the upper final.
And then even beyond there too, because any team they meet in the upper final is very winnable. Like I think
here's the problem. I feel
winnable.
like there are 3 teams in the upper bracket that all have a reasonable chance of just making it all the way to the final.
You mean in the upper half of the bracket?
Yeah, the upper half of the bracket. Sorry,
Okay.
In the top half of the bracket, Fnatic, Sen, and Vikings, I think all have a chance of just winning all the way through.
Okay.
But those 3, it feels like they're so close that it's hard to call.
They don't go up against any, like, it's always going to be even or harder matchups, right?
Yes.
They don't go up against any.
They don't get any free wins.
Anything like that. No
free wins.
No version 1, no Sharks, no new turn that can upset random teams because we don't really understand. This should be theoretically all even. But with that said, I still think that Fnatic should be the best team in this upper bracket. So
you expect them to make the upper final?
I expect them, to make the upper final.
That would be an all-European upper final that we're predicting there as well. It's such a rough bracket.
Let's leave the predictions to the main episode,
Hey,
right?
fair enough.
we reserve full right to change the shit out of what we say.
Very true. But I think though that for me, expectations would be for them to only lose in extraordinarily close games against other tier 1 teams. And I feel it feels rough to put like a number on it, like they must finish 5th. Because when you see the side of the bracket, they're going to be facing like Sentinels, Vikings. You know, if they kept continuing, they'd play Crew, Sentinels, Vikings, Liquid.
I mean, they've played every good team.
They've played all the top teams. So even if they lost, and then even if they lost 2 games against. I guess essentially my expectations would be it's only disappointing for Fnatic if they lose every battle against a top team. If they lost to Sentinels and then they lost to who would they even meet at that point? Maybe Vikings later on down in the lower bracket. Like if they just lost their 2 big games against tier 1 competition, that would be disappointing. But if they can beat Sentinels but then end up going out in 4th or something because they had such a rough side of the bracket, I feel like you can still shoot them some bail there and be like, okay, they were still a very good team. They just didn't quite make it. But I think
they've got to be in the top 4. But
yeah, I personally would be disappointed if they didn't make top 3. But with how rough their bracket is, I could see worlds in which they could very reasonably not, and I would still be like, oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I think they've got to be top 4, but they could reasonably win, but they've got to be top 4.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think peak is winning. Although I think we've said like Sentinels, Liquid, and Fnatic now can win, right? Fnatic is probably one of my higher. Like I want that the most. But also that's what I expect for a peak. For a bottom, I think 4th place is reasonable. I don't understand how the lower bracket is going to work yet. I need to wrap my head around and look at that C double bracket. But
But for example, like the way that the SEA bracket worked is that if they beat Crew and lose to Sentinels, they're all the way back in lower round 1. So like they have to
play against a team from the other side. Then
they would play against Crazy Raccoons, I guess. Is it Crazy Raccoons?
Wait, what? That is so punishing.
It's extraordinarily Fnatic. Out of all of the top teams, Fnatic have the hardest route by far. Definitely. Yeah. So it's
and they have the hardest first round opponent possible.
Yeah, it is brutal. It's absolutely brutal. Even if they win the first game and then lose, they're still all the way back in the same round. I thought it was
like they switched the team that goes to that lower round one so that the team who already gets screwed isn't getting screwed again.
That's not how they did it in Southeast Asia. So if they use the same format, this is the way that it's going to work. As for whether or not they do that, fuck knows. Because
if they win, they will have had the most impressive win you could probably have.
Yeah, they'd have run the gauntlet.
I mean, they will have beaten every top team on the way.
Yep. All right. Well, that does it for Europe. I hope that's been a decent guide to get up to speed with what's been going on over there. And we'll see how it all plays out. Maybe we're just huffing the EU copium too much.
No, and you're taking it all. No, back on the NA train.
He began on the NA train. He leaves on the NA train. Fair enough. We're gonna have the main episode coming out tomorrow, where we'll be doing like big bracket predictions, talking through them. We'll be reviewing the Asian teams as well, at least most of them that we haven't talked about yet. And then we'll have another episode of this, the Iceland team preview for South America, coming at you on Thursday. So hit the subscribe button, smash that like button, and actually the like button doesn't help you, but I don't know, you can hit it anyway. Yeah?
I think so.
It's a form of engagement.
We got to get the engagement rates up.
Okay, sure. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe, make sure you catch all the content.
You own a company? We could use some sponsors. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You got a company?
Yeah.
Hey, we got an email address.
All right, but we'll catch you. Yeah, we do. God, you are just, it's a form of begging at this point. All right, we'll see you for the next episodes, though, on Thursday.